Well, Colin, what I love about episodes like today is that we're talking to experts. We're talking, it's not newbies. These are not like podcasters who COVID hit. Now we got to do something. They've been at it. They've been doing it
for a while.
For a while. And again, with titles, and 300 plus episodes, if I'm correct. If we'll talk about this.
Hey-o.
Is that right? If not,
we're inching in on our 300th episode.
Okay, so there's a celebration about to happen, but with titles such as High Number Highs and Shrinking Men Thighs, Playing Hooky and Unholy Matrimony, Butts, Budgets, and Building. And that's just to whet your appetite.
So if you aren't aware,
yes.
We never go back and look at
podcast.
any of the. It's not unfortunate.
So entertaining.
That might make it more appropriate. But we come up with a title and then like, hey, that's funny, and then never think about it again.
Who says the funniest thing 5 minutes before the show starts, and that's how we title it.
And so the Shrinking Man Thighs got me. I wasn't expecting to come back to that at any point in my life.
And there it is.
It's back today, but introduce our guest, Colin. It's a nonprofit Renaissance podcast helping you go further and grow faster. Who's with us today, Colin?
We got some buddies. We got Andrew Larson here.
Excuse me, Dr. Andrew Larson.
Doctor, you are correct.
Dun.
Dr. Andrew Larson.
Thank you.
As of
Officially conferred last month.
Heyo. See, he uses words like conferred. He definitely has a doctorate.
He's a doctor.
So is it a doctorate or a PhD? Because I recently learned that those are not the same thing.
They are not the
They're
same
separate
thing.
things.
It's a doctor of ministry.
Yes, sir. So I should not come to you with my fungal problems.
I mean, I'll take a look.
Okay.
But it's not.
I'll get
mostly because I'm curious.
You'll chat GPT it. Yeah. So that's Andrew, a pastor of Safety Harbor Church. And then we've also got another buddy of mine, Tim Miller. He's the pastor over at Lakeview
Church, baby.
Lakeview Church. And so known these guys for a good amount of time. And they are the hosts of two podcasts. One is the Morning After Ministry that we just
The Morning After Ministry show.
some of the
Come
titles.
on, Colin.
That's it.
Show.
You acted like a fangirl earlier. Now you're gonna come on.
Oh my gosh. And then also Practically Pastoring that you get with 3 other pastors every week, every other week. So two podcasts that you guys are doing both of those are weekly shows.
Well, we record 2 episodes of Practically Pastoring at a time.
But they play every
and then
week.
They're both weekly
we
shows.
release one every week, but it comes out.
A lot of
Monday.
content generated each week, and you guys are also pastors, so you're writing sermons, you're just generating a lot of things, a lot of stuff,
All of the above.
Colin, I want to start there because for our listeners, for whether it's ministry, parachurch, whether it's nonprofits, you've been at it for a while. Wasn't joking. You've been doing some content, generating content, podcasts, multiple podcasts outside of your church and your ministry podcast and all the other stuff you do, like this podcast. Why? And why have you stuck with it? Why do you keep going back to the microphone and putting content out?
I think it's pretty easy for me. I don't know if Andrew would agree or not. When we first had the idea to do the show, we were looking really for an excuse to hang out every week.
That's exactly what I was going to say.
We knew that, hey, we need time.
Mondays are hard. We don't want to actually do real work.
Typically for us in ministry, weekends are long and they're exhausting, so Mondays are really difficult to get at ministry land. So we thought, what's a good way to decompress a little bit? And we know we're not alone, so we knew our target audience was going to be other exhausted pastors. So that was kind of the idea of what if we just got together and hung out every week and we just did it on a regular basis.
And it's live. You're live on Facebook. You're obviously distributing all platforms. Tell me, it's 2018, I think, episode 1.
Yep.
And you've been at it because I think the consistency is key with things like this. You haven't quit. Have you thought about quitting?
You guys didn't join the COVID train of like, well, I guess we might as well just do a podcast because we can't get together.
We're pre-COVID.
Yeah.
Now, Practically Pastoring came out of COVID land, that season. But no, we've been doing this since 2018.
Yeah.
Now, so help a nonprofit leader understand a little bit of a pastoral ministry rhythm, right? It's like, what do you mean Monday, dude? Monday's, hustle. Monday, 9 a.m., boom. Help them understand, obviously, because this is for multiple layers of leadership in nonprofit. Churches are nonprofit, but that weekend, 52 weeks a year schedule is a grind. Help them understand a little bit about that.
I mean, think about the term paper that you had due in Comp 1 or Western Civ, that thing that was looming at the end of the semester, and how the day after that, you're like, whew, I am not doing any homework today. That is 52 Sundays a year. I try to explain to teenagers, like, hey, what's your job like? I lead our student ministry right now at our church because we don't have a youth pastor right now. And they're like, well, so what's your job all week? I'm like, that paper that you don't want to write, that's what I do every week. And
It's one of the things that I do every week.
One of the things that I do that's the thing that people can see that I do every week is I am writing a 3,500 word term paper, and it's not just a teacher coasting that's grading it. It is people who are grading it with their feet, with their checkbooks, with their kids' involvement. So that means that Monday morning is a huge exhale time, while at the same time trying to kind of recoup and get ready to do it again 6 days later.
Yeah, so something that we say often in ministry land is Sunday's always coming. It's like it's just this, we know in the back of our minds, no matter what day it is, it could be Sunday afternoon, and we've already thought that next Sunday is coming again. So it is that weekly grind, but Sunday is the day, it's the exhausting day. It's the one that you've pumped and you've put the pressure on and you've done all, hopefully, the prep necessary. And not just Saturday night, but all throughout the week.
I was at a big, cool church, if you will, in Texas while I was in seminary. And the staff slogan was, "It's the weekend, stupid," because it was, hey, whatever's coming up, the weekend is the thing that matters. And that's, I think, a very shallow and short-sighted way to look at things. But at the same time, it's true. Sunday comes every 7 days, whether or not you're prepared to, whether or not you've been on vacation, whether or not you've had difficult things, whether it be counseling or funerals or whatever else is happening during the week, Sunday is still coming.
And it's an emotional, spiritual, physical. I mean, we can go down the line.
Yeah.
Financial, depending on
Whatever.
Totally
But
agree.
it is, right? There's a pull in all those senses that Monday morning is,
Yeah, and there's this pressure on Sundays where you feel like you kind of have to be on. Like you have to be there to talk to people, to listen to people, and also, by the way, I'm going to preach possibly more than one service. If you have multiple services, you've got to be ready to go back to back. So it's like that big meeting you have coming up and that feeling you have when that meeting is over. I mean, I've heard pastors describe it like that to business leaders, and that pressure you felt when that meeting was looming large, and there it is, and then you can exhale. That's us Sunday afternoons at like 12:30.
But also when you are in nonprofit, you have a board of directors, and most churches have elders or a board or whatever it is, but you also have however many board members that are just sitting and listening. So it's not, hey, I'm looking at the minutes, I'm looking at the results, but it's the immediate feedback, but also the immediate, how available are you to me? Because I know that you do this 40 hours a week or 50 hours a week or whatever, but I've got 15 minutes that I expect for you to give me right now,
Right.
even though you've just dumped out everything that you had.
tell us this. And we've talked a little bit about, this topic earlier, but how has it impacted the podcast on Mondays? How's that impacted the connection to the congregation, audience, board members? Are you filtered, unfiltered? Has any episode not made air, or you're live? So have you had to take something down? Let's get real on.
We'll hit the mute button every now and then.
We'll hit the mute button. I've gotten myself into a little bit of trouble before. I've had elders call and say, hey, that might have been a little too much dirt on what's happening specifically at the church right now.
Ooh.
Okay, but you went through a ridiculous
We did.
situation at
We
the
did.
church. It's been years ago.
Yeah,
so
it's been a
so
while.
Tim's mentor, senior pastor, he was the next gen pastor at the time. And when a senior pastor resigns on Good Friday, there's usually a story behind that. And so that's what Tim went through about the time that we were getting a year after.
Mhm.
So we started doing the show in 2018. This was 2019. So Good Friday 2019, Tim gets a call, hey, as of now, you are the only pastor on staff.
Wow.
Get ready for Sunday morning, which is Easter, by the way.
Yeah, so we should say for context, you had been the youth pastor for many years, and all of a sudden became the
Yeah,
senior
so I
pastor.
was youth pastor, next gen pastor, basically the same role, different title. And then in 2019, assumed the role of lead pastor.
You assumed the role of interim pastor.
And then
there were
on Easter Sunday.
on Easter
and there
Sunday.
were elders who, even though it had been well documented that the plan was for Tim to take over when this other pastor retired,
There was a succession
there
plan in
was a
place.
succession plan in place. But then there were a couple of elders who were like, nah, we're good. The church has voted on this, ratified this. This is all clear. Let's get rid of that. And some of those things were discussed, maybe in a little bit of frustration, but also me standing up for my buddy. And maybe we should have been a little bit more careful about discussing.
We could have been a little more careful. So I had a few a few conversations with, hey, do you think it was wise to go there on the podcast? And I did stand up for myself. I admitted probably said a little bit too much at the time, but I was going through a lot. I needed a chance to talk through some things, and I had a great community around me. There's an elder who's no longer with us who
He's
actually,
not dead. He just quit.
he's no longer with us as a church. He suggested that we actually X the podcast. He said, I don't think it's good for you right now. And I said, I need the podcast.
Yeah.
Like, I need that community.
I will let you guess if he was one of the ones trying to nix the succession plan.
Well, we're going to link it on right here at the bottom of this page. You can click the link to that episode. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah, right there. Yeah.
You'll find it. It's not hard. It's
Is it?
the most listened to episode.
Oh, wow.
So if you got a little bit of time to sift through 300 episodes.
Well, that brings this topic because I think there's a lot of great content out there, a lot of great podcasts. There's niches and lanes. How authentic can you be, right, with conversations like this? There's wisdom, dirty laundry in public, right? But also I think there's a craving for real talk, authentic talk, especially on a therapeutic Monday morning after. I'm sure you guys have wrestled with that, right?
Yeah. Well, and you can pretty intuitively tell usually when someone is not being authentic, when they're putting on some type of mask. So, I mean, yeah, how do you guys navigate that?
Andrew and I will typically we'll look at each other and we'll just know, okay, we can go down this topic, but we can't mention names, right? Like, because we know that if you're working at a church in a ministry position, you have also been down this road. We don't even have to give a certain name because you know that type of person or that situation that you've been through. So we try to hit on these situations or topics that we know you're walking through it too, and we don't even have to give specifics because you've been there.
And we also know that if we wait 3 weeks on some of the heavier stuff, we might have better perspective. And the person that's listening this week to get us in a gotcha, like, haha, I heard you talk about that. They're not listening in 3 weeks because they've moved on.
Right.
And so then we can talk about it then.
Yeah, we have these moments where it's like, okay, is this okay to talk about now? And so we'll wait a few weeks to make sure, that it's died down. We can now talk through this on the show.
Well, I imagine with your audience too, that there's probably people listening to, or that eventually listen, that this is all probably very helpful with, because maybe they are experiencing something very similar and they're learning, okay, someone else has walked through this, but also maybe insights on like, here's how we went through it, or I don't know, just like that idea of there's somebody else that suffered this and knows what I'm
There's
feeling.
definitely a sense of camaraderie, and we get, 1, 2, 3 reach outs a week, I'd say, just from people who are like, wow, okay, I know that was like a really dumb part of the show, but I'm just telling you that's what we're walking through right now. And then we'll have a chance to have that conversation outside of the Monday morning setting and then build a relationship, which is really kind of the point of the show, is to build relationships, not just with each other, but with other ministry partners.
Our motto seemed, whether we ever voted on it, I don't know, but it's just don't do ministry alone. And
that's our tag.
And we kind of both came up with Colin as well in a church that was fortunate to have a multi-staff student ministry. And so we cut our teeth in ministry like, hey, I'm part of a team. And then one day we became a grown-up and it's like, oh, it's me on an island.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Mm-hmm. And the vast majority of churches, that's how it is. Right. It's really easy to focus on the big and the cool and the loud churches. And thank goodness for them. People are getting saved there. They're coming to Christ there. They're growing in their faith there. But the vast majority of the churches in our country, there's one staff person. And there's a lot of people that feel like they are just stuck and there's nobody else that they can go to who is going through what they're going through. And so kind of what gives us the freedom to do this, and if it's a person in the congregation or a board member who's like, hey, why'd you say that? It's like, well, because we're not talking to you. We're talking to the pastors who are dealing with what we're dealing with, and you are welcome to listen in because it's public and it's out there, but it's not for you. It's for these pastors who need, who need a staff meeting, who don't have a staff to meet with, that they can kind of digest the week in ministry that was.
And most of those who jump on the show with us every Monday are those who are looking for a connection and need that sense of camaraderie, and that's what we get, the same people commenting every week because they're looking forward to that time every week.
Right.
Well, speaking of the connection, authenticity in the show, we're going to link the morning after ministry show. We'll talk about practically pastoring. I also want to talk about all the dirt. You've known Colin for years now, so we'll talk about that. But about authenticity,
Doesn't exist, like I said,
I'm gonna play back something here. Just in connection to style, the demographic, the show. This is the intro to the show, and I want to talk a little bit about this.
Yeah, authenticity.
Welcome to the Morning After Ministry Show, a caffeine-fueled look back on the week and ministry that was.
All right.
So which one of you did that intro?
Yeah.
Okay,
All me.
Andrew, you can go through the story here, but there is a story behind the intro.
Tell me more.
We were in Chicago for a denominational conference where the median age was 39 years older than either of us. And we had talked about this thing. We're like, hey, do you know what? Let's do it. And so we decided we were going to do it. And I was playing in GarageBand and put a few things, it's a free GarageBand,
I love it.
whatever.
Boom chakalaka, whatever.
And the other audio that we have on the show is just like 3 or 4 beats mixed together from GarageBand. I am the least musical person I've ever met, and that's just playing in GarageBand. So we kind of had this idea of, wouldn't it be funny if it sounded like that?
Yeah.
And there was
Right, kind of like this almost like 70s vibe.
Do you know what was the
Welcome.
what was the SNL sketch? The Ladies Man.
Yeah.
the
with-
ladies'
with
man was
Jen
the
Meadows.
idea. Yep.
And I was taking a class at this denominational conference. It was like an ordination transfer thing. It'll be very boring if we get into that. But there was a guy in the class who was sitting at my table for like a week. We were in a Hyatt Regency basement for 8 hours a day, and it was just so boring. But he had this deep, booming voice. And I went up
Which
to
you've
him.
heard.
I went, well, yes, because we were at this table discussing the theology of the Evangelical Covenant Church. It was just thrilling. And I went up to him at one of the breaks, like, this is going to sound so weird, but can I have you read this one sentence into my phone? So we recorded it on an elevator.
On your phone.
On my phone in
An
the elevator.
elevator.
And then this was, pre-airdrop. And so I then plugged my phone into the laptop, and then I think I dropped it by about a half octave.
We slowed it
We
down
slowed it
to
down.
like 80% speed.
Yeah.
And that's how we got like the depth that we wanted there.
And I think probably a half dozen times we're like, are we going to update this at some point? And why?
No.
we
why?
can't we can never touch that.
It's just so
I
ridiculous.
love it. The first time I heard, an episode, I'm listening, you guys are kind of breaking in, and then, you do the introduction. It just made me giggle and laugh. Like I'm like, and it was soothing. It was kind of like, comforting.
we want to take ministry seriously. We want to take our calling seriously. We want to take the people that God has entrusted to us seriously. We never want to take ourselves
I
seriously.
love that.
Yep.
I love that. No, and laughter is good for the soul. I think there's joy that comes in. So, and you guys definitely do that. Highly recommend if you're a pastor in ministry, or if you want to understand, if you're a leader and wanting to understand and get a little behind the scenes, definitely check out the Morning After Ministry Show, and all the links below, on Tim and Andrew. Let's talk some leadership and let's talk some insights here. Colin, I'll let you get rolling.
Yeah. So again, this is the nonprofit renaissance. So we want to help nonprofits go further, grow faster. We literally, I don't think there's ever been an episode where we've got that right the first time. But so as churches, I'm sure you guys partner with nonprofits. So what are you looking? So for the nonprofit leader who's saying who sees churches are a big partnership opportunity. What are you guys looking for in orgs that you partner with, to get your attention and trust to be like, okay, this is an org that I want to have my name connected to, or that I want to help with? What are you guys looking for out of an org, would you say?
For us, it's mission and vision. So when we approach or hear from a nonprofit, does it line up with our mission and vision as a church, which we would consider ourselves to be gospel focused and gospel centered? So typically, most of the nonprofits that we align ourselves with also share in a gospel focused, gospel centered approach.
Yeah.
And there's a process. It's not just, hey, the pastor wants to partner with. No, we have a board of elders that we talk through this with. We've got a mission outreach team if it's a missions organization that we talk with. And we go through this process and we have this conversation, quite a bit of prayer, and then we make the decision.
Yeah. So you guys are you err on the a little more choosy side, maybe with.
Oh yeah, we have lots of requests and people reaching out to us, and we do listen and we do have those conversations, but we're pretty selective with who we partner with because that's we're putting our church's name attached to that organization as well. So if we're sending our people there to volunteer to help serve, then we want to make sure it's a mission / vision that we can get behind and that we're in line with.
Sure.
I think yes to everything he just said, but one caveat that makes things a little bit different is our church is in the middle of a downtown area, and there are organizations that specifically focus on downtown Safety Harbor, where our church is located, that may not be Christian organizations that we'll still partner with. We do something next week called the Turkey Hoop Shoot, which sounds dangerous, like we're shooting turkeys. We're not. Kids are shooting basketballs. They win turkeys.
You're shooting turkeys into hoops.
Yes.
Yeah, got that.
And then we make them cook them, and they're disgusting and covered in gravel. It's delicious. But no, so we partner with whoever is partnering with the city of Safety Harbor for lots of things like that.
Sure.
And so I say there's a different. Everything is ministry, absolutely, but maybe not everything is gospel ministry. Not everything is going to, present Christ to somebody. So I think if someone is being called to go to a foreign country or to go to a specific people, that's a different conversation for us and the way that we decipher who we're going to partner with versus someone who is coming into downtown. I just think our main partner in the city of Safety Harbor is an organization called the Maddie Williams Neighborhood Family Center, and they feed about 150 families in downtown Safety Harbor a week. We could collect canned food and we could do all of those things and not make a dent compared to what they're doing. And so it's easier for us to say, hey, we are going to trust that God is going to be glorified in us partnering with you, and not, hey, we need to put a John 3:16 stamp on every box of spaghetti that we give you for it to actually be ministry. So I think that it's just the one caveat, and part of that comes from us being located where we are.
Yeah, I would say with the gospel focus that we have, it's hands and feet. So I think that's definitely a hands and feet ministry of feeding. We have a feeding the children program. We're the same way. Like we used to run our own food bank years back, and we realized that there are nonprofits that do this way better than we could ever do. So we've partnered with several nonprofits to help feed kids in schools and things like that.
Yeah, there's a lot of nonprofits that are that do have that strong faith base. I'm thinking of like Metro. I partnered with them as a youth pastor multiple times, but they're not in their face. They're trying to help people, and so it's but you still know that you've got that foundational piece. So yeah,
What's the old saying, right? Whether it's an Andy Stanleyism, if we're going to bring him up, it's the invest and invite, or that approach first, let them belong before they believe. Theologically, let's open up a can of worms here, Doctor. I'll let the doctor go first. Is that okay?
Do you concur?
I concur.
Because he's brought up gospel 17 times. I think you're keeping the gospel word check.
Yeah.
Okay, we got a counter, which is good
Just want to see if I can
news.
beat Matt Chandler with it.
you're gonna have to get going.
Yes, which is it's a Christian term. It's the good news. It's also a musical genre.
True.
It's also what non-charismatic people want to say for the Holy Spirit. The gospel compels me. Where in Matthew, Mark, Luke, or John is that compulsion? No, you're talking about the Holy Spirit, but you don't want to.
That's the one.
Yeah, that's
Doctor's
good.
coming out.
That's good. Well, I only ask because many times, unless there's that ultimate altar call presentation of the gospel, folks will withhold the good or withhold being a good Samaritan or serving or giving because, I'd rather not, because unless I know that they're going to join my church or we're going to give them this Gideon Bible and they're going to trust Christ with this chick track in front of me right now. And I think that's a miss, because then we become unlike Jesus to a community looking for something different. It's like, who are these Christians? Thoughts on that?
Jesus was feeding at least 5,000, if not 15,000 at a time, and yet he sent out 72. That's not a very good conversion ratio. I am okay
not
being
wrong.
like Jesus.
That's good. So you wouldn't make an outreach top 100 with that, I don't think. Right?
No, but that's okay. I tell everybody, man, I spent the first 15 years of my career working at big, cool churches. I am so good being at a little neighborhood church. Do I say it?
I dare you.
Go ahead.
They don't pay you any different.
He's not wrong.
That's
Is that what you wrote your thesis on?
No.
Close.
No. But I
Burnout in ministry was his actual thesis.
Yeah. So it was
hey, right there,
Yeah.
right there.
The place of the little church that's actually in the neighborhood, that we say that we want the people in our neighborhood and in our community that might not be churched people or be churchy people. There's going to come a time and a point in their lives when they're going to need a church, whether that's for a funeral or because God gets a hold of them in a specific way. We want them to be comfortable in our space so that when that moment comes, whether that's because of a gospel-driven. There's another one for you.
Thank you.
Whether that's because of a gospel-driven conversation with someone from our church or just because God is using the circumstances of life to get a hold of them, we don't want it to be difficult for them to find us. And so we try to get involved in city work and community work wherever we can, whether that's a parade or, helping kids in underserved neighborhoods win Thanksgiving dinners for their families, because we trust in the sovereignty of God and that God is going to use all things to glorify himself, whether or not it's on a track.
Love that.
So we don't have the benefit of being in the middle of a city.
You
like
don't.
You guys do in
we have
Safety
way
Harbor.
better lunch options at Safety Harbor
Way
than
better.
Tim does at Lakeview. He has way better parking options.
We have more parking. We have more traffic. We have about 46,000 cars that drive through right in front of our church every single day.
Yeah.
So a lot of our partnerships come from our people presenting them to us. Just because we aren't in the middle of a community, we're off a pretty busy street. So we do have to have a vetting process because we have a lot of people wanting to do a lot of things, which we could have our hand in a lot of things, but we'd rather do a few of those things really well. So that also plays a big part of it.
Yeah. On the lunch options topic, it's called Lakeview Church, not for no reason. It's because you're next to a lake, and also it's really cool. If you look them up, go find photos. If you're like your whole,
It's glass.
it's all glass pretty much,
It's
and
it's three sides glass. So when I'm preaching, no one's paying attention. The only thing they can see behind me is the lake.
it's the beautiful lake.
There's often a gator frolicking in the lake while I'm preaching.
So that's what I was going to ask. So there's gators in there. I'd assume that means there's also fish. I mean,
Gators,
that seems like a
fish,
good lunch option potentially.
Turkey.
I don't know if you ever.
A lot of turkey.
Okay.
And wild boar has been the latest nuisance. So we have hunters hunting the boar as we speak, and they get to keep whatever it is they capture.
What kind of wild animals are roaming around in downtown Safety Harbor?
We have a lot of cats.
Other than some of the people, but
We have we have a lot of dogs that come to church. We
The
started,
reason they opened up an outdoor service.
Like DAW.
no
dogs?
like
Okay.
canines.
Like my
Actual-
dogs.
So Safety Harbor, it's kind of I say it's granola. It's kind of crunchy, which is the fancy way for saying affluent white, but not a lot of Trump hats, And so they were more COVID cautious than lots of other communities might have been. And so Christmas Eve 2020, and we only have one of our three sides is glass. We don't have like a lobby that you walk into and then walk into the worship center. You walk into the worship center, but the whole front of the building is glass. So if you're outside of our building, you can look in and see what's going on in the building. And so we put a TV on the front stoop on Christmas Eve 2020 that plugs into our ATEM video splitter. And so whatever is being seen on our live stream is also being seen on a TV on the front stoop. And that people kept coming, so we kept putting it out there. And so now most Sunday mornings we'll have 12 or 15 people and their dogs outside.
I was gonna say, I thought you were going the direction that it's just like 12 dogs.
It's
Or
all
something.
animals on the outdoor service.
So
It's Charlie Brown Christmas. We're
Exactly.
putting Snoopy there.
it's really kind of funny.
What's the ratio of glass to salary per building and your staff? So more glass, more salary, better pay?
It
I
sounds
mean, a little bit, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Because Tim's got more
Yeah, you nailed
glass.
We're going to send this to your board just to make sure. Yes.
noted.
But going back to choosing nonprofits,
Yeah.
I'll tell you
Thanks
what
for
makes it.
keeping us
Oh,
on-
no,
Yeah, that's his way of please cut that out.
no. I'll say it's really easy for me. I could be completely theologically and missional. That's not a word.
Missionally.
Yeah, missionally.
The
There we go.
doctors can make up their words and we
Yes.
have to believe it.
True.
Theologically and missionally aligned with somebody, and be like hard pass, no way,
Yeah.
because
So yeah,
there
why?
are so many nonprofits that are so pushy. There's something about a lot of nonprofits that say, hey, this is what I'm passionate about. As a follower of Jesus, this is something that I am called to do. Therefore, if you are not called to do the thing that I'm called to do, you must not be following Jesus. And I don't know that any of them necessarily would articulate that, but I could list 4 or 5 organizations that every time they reach out to me, that is what I get. What do you
It's
mean
clear, it's obvious,
you're
yeah.
not giving me 10 minutes on a Sunday morning, a half an hour after I've met you? Don't you think that we need to do this? And you can put whatever cause you think is in there. And everybody listening to this could think of 3 or 4 organizations that are way too pushy about that cause. And I wish I had a form letter to just send to some of these nonprofit people that reach out that says, I absolutely affirm God's call in your life for this cause. It is not the only cause that the church is called to. In fact, it might distract from the greater cause that the church is called to.
So I was going to ask, so, if there is a nonprofit that may not be have as strong of a faith foundation, but it's really their drive is just community based. I have a heart for whatever this thing is. Which of those organizations probably has a better chance of partnering with you? The one who's maybe not as faith based, or the one who is faith based but they're
Obnoxious. Definitely the less obnoxious option.
Yeah, we had this scenario hit us a couple of years ago, and we had a nonprofit reach out, and they wanted to pull off a big event at our church. They were not faith-based, but they were real big on community and wanted to do something awesome for the community. And we have 36 acres at Lakeview, so we had the room to pull it off. And it was just one of those opportunities that we thought, you know what? We're not going to be preaching here. We're not going to be passing out tracts. There's not going to be any Bibles handed out, but we can open up our space. We can invite our church people, and they can invite the rest of the Trinity community to come on out. And it was the most well-attended event that's ever happened on our church property. And it was all because a nonprofit reached out to us and just said, hey, we'd love to partner with you and use your space. And it was just a really sweet partnership, even though it wasn't, it wasn't necessarily a Christian event.
There was no altar call.
There was no altar call. There were no tracts, but yeah, it's possible.
Wow.
No spontaneous baptisms.
And people did show up on Sunday, though. It was one of those events where typically no one ever shows up to church after that, but we actually had a few families that did come to church after an event like that, which was rare.
I love that. It's great insight, because I think there's a level of passion, right, that will inspire and actually connect. But it can cross the line, and there's a level of passion that becomes pushy, like you said, and will, break or, push someone away. And I do think for those of you listening, I think that's a good, and trying to be, square peg in a round hole. If the missions don't align, don't force yourselves into, and I think churches need to be okay with not feeling guilt. It's like, yeah, maybe I don't need to do blank. I don't need to do what everybody else is doing. What's God calling, your local neighborhood church to do and align with, internal and
I think
external.
Andrew brings up a great point too, because I've often been guilted into this, and if you could just stop, that would be great. We don't need more pressure or more guilt trying to just throwing on us what do you mean I can't have more time on a Sunday morning with you? But if you were a bit more relational and conversational, and I don't know, bought me a lunch, I might be more
or took
open
me to Top Golf. Shout out to A Door of Hope.
Hey, that was such a sweet event. That nonprofit they invited every pastor in the area and just said, hey, we're gonna pitch our organization, and we're gonna buy you lunch, and you're gonna play Top Golf for 2 hours.
Hello.
That was awesome.
Yeah.
That was so sweet.
And I'm probably far more effective than just guilting somebody into, hey, you're a church, you got to do this.
Far more effective than the email I got 2 months ago that said, hey, you haven't responded to my past email. Are you even pro-life?
I got the same one. I got the same one.
Which means that somebody in their strategy session has said, here's what you do. If a pastor doesn't reply to the first 2 emails, you send them this so that they feel guilted into replying. Because unfortunately, the entry-level position in so many nonprofits, it's basically an outside sales job.
Yeah.
And yikes.
Yikes.
Big yikes.
And probably AI generating some of those crappy emails now, which is horrible.
For sure. Yeah.
I hope so. I
probably.
hope that was.
I'm pro-life, but am I anti?
Yeah.
You got the censor button on this one or no?
No, not on this one. But in post, I promise I'll do it.
No, I love that. So again, just to get practical, and I'll re-say this because you're gonna have a fun time editing this one. But to get practical on tips for nonprofits, there's everything from the Convoys of Hope, where join us on a cruise for a week, and we're gonna tell you everything about this. Which, listen, for a pastor who's hustling 52 weeks a year, probably can't get that. Yeah, there's a strategy that works, that's encouraging, that's inspiring, and that also that will cast vision. The golfing, or the whatever it may be, or the simple lunch, relational conversation, and no pressure. I may not hear from you for 6 months to a year, but I'm here. This is what we do. Some pro tips. Give us some pro tips. You're on the receiving end of the sales emails, of the texts, of the mailers, of the... Give us some more tips on the folks listening who are looking to access to your congregation, sometimes the same dollars, sometimes the same stage, space, part, whatever it is. So there's a competition here for that resource. We all want to do good things. We all want to get the gospel to people. We all want to feed families. We all want to make a dent. Talk to us. Give us some pro tips.
I think the word resource is that you just said is the word is what you need to focus on. How can I be a resource to this congregation? Some congregations need this, and this resource, and some don't. And so find the congregations that you can actually be a resource for, and that's where you will have more success.
Adding value.
Yeah.
Actually adding value to you first, right? So it's a flip. It's not like, what can they do for me? It's what can we do for you? Fair?
Absolutely.
Because every church has whatever mission organizations that they partner with, and then when you add denominational churches in there, that is my favorite rejection line. If someone is reaching out like, I don't want to. This is not a group that I want to partner with. Hey, our denomination has a wing that handles this, and we are committed, X% of our budget towards denominational causes. So sorry, we're good there. Now we could wiggle things around and make something else happen if you were someone who I personally felt like, hey, this is worth bringing to the elders. This is worth, and any of our elders can do this. This is not me gatekeeping the church, but
out of relationship and value.
But a relationship and what is going to make life better for people in my church and what is going to make life easier for me to provide this resource to the community.
Yeah, we can resource your families. Hey, we've got a great resource for your staff. Like those are two big keys for me. I'm like, okay, that's one less thing I have to worry about, and you can actually help me in this area. I'm listening. So that's real big for us as well. It's
also a way to prove that, hey, we actually do have something to value by partnering with you. It's we're not just trying to get whatever you have. It's like this can be an ongoing thing where we're consistently providing value.
I want to jump on this because one, we don't want to set the division that, well, churches are nonprofits as well. And we're talking to nonprofits who sometimes look at the church as their only source of volunteers, of resources. Right. But churches are nonprofits. So there's a tension there that you're kind of talking about the same people, the same time, the same, right? Talents, treasures. Talk to us a little about that. People, volunteers, any hesitation? Do you just like, oh, here's my roll call, here's my CRM, just jump in
here's numbers.
Here's the list of 1,000 people you can call. Why wouldn't you do that? I'll answer that for you. And how can organizations understand that in partnering with churches and kind of building that relationship?
Well, our volunteers only have so much time on their hands, and we already ask a lot of them.
And Sunday is still coming every 7 days.
Yes.
And Sunday is always coming. So when you're asking for volunteers, it's going to be a big ask, and we better have a real big window here of we're looking for volunteers way down the road. We've had some that are like, hey, we've got this event coming up this weekend. I'm like, bro, like had you told me 6 months ago, and I could have given you that mission team leader or the head of that area or that ministry, I would have put you in touch with them months ago. But this and I get these a lot, like these last second, we're looking for hands, we're looking for help. And it's like, yeah, we want to be there, but you gotta like let us know in advance and talk to us. But really, I try to protect our volunteers as much as possible. I try to protect my staff. I try to protect our volunteers. So when there are great opportunities, we'll let them know. But when it's like, okay, there's a lot happening right now, and this is going to be one more thing that's possibly going to lead them to burnout, then the answer is probably going to be no.
Yeah. And that's where mission and values alignment, I think, comes in and is so key, is that if you have, if your mission is very much aligned with the church, it's a lot easier to say, hey, this will be a valuable thing for you to push to your people to say, hey, come and be a part. I know as a church, at my church, we do a few things where it's like, hey, let's go serve together. And we don't give everyone the opportunity to do that, right? There's some orgs that we've built a relationship with, and it's like, hey, we're going to go do this as a church. And so again, that's a community builder. But it's going to be a lot easier to do that, I think, when you've got that alignment there.
Alignment and then value add.
Exactly. Yeah. So volunteers, we're talking a lot about volunteers. Orgs need them. Nonprofit orgs need them. That's how they run. That's how they do what they need to do. So thinking of the nonprofit org, how do they reach, recruit, retain volunteers effectively? I'm assuming that you guys have a little bit of knowledge of that as well, because that's pretty much how a lot of what happens on a Sunday happens as well.
Well, their podcast, right? There's like 16 volunteers running the back end of that whole thing.
Yeah, for sure.
Volunteers.
Engineers, producers, makeup alone is like
well,
3.
Someone's got to be doing the palm fronds.
Yeah.
That's true.
Go after people that not everybody else is going after. That's the best way to get volunteers. We had a Guardian ad litem group come to our church, and it was, hey, here's what we need here, the children in the foster care system right in our immediate area. And they made a pitch to pretty much exclusively retired people in the church. And everybody that wants to come, hey, we need people to swing hammers. We need people to sweat. We need people to do this. And it was, hey, retired people, we need 2 hours a week. And she was like, I think we might have had like 95-ish people there that Sunday. And 17 signed up to be guardian ad litem, like went through the whole process. And I got a letter from her a couple weeks later, like, this is the biggest percentage of any audience we've ever had.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I was like, well, yeah, because you're going after someone that not everybody's going after. Go after the teenagers. Here in Florida, every kid needs Bright Futures volunteer hours. So, yeah, it would be great to have a 38-year-old engineer who wants to design and build something for you. But that guy has a wife, 3 kids, and is exhausted.
And a job where he's doing that.
And a job and a golf game and all the other things. So, go to either end of the adult spectrum. The young adults that, whether it be, they need experience, they need volunteer hours, wonderful. Or the people that have kind of been overlooked. Oh, you used to be awesome. You're still awesome. Maybe you're not swinging the hammer the way that you used to, but you can serve.
Absolutely.
Yeah, for us, when it comes to recruiting, we try to, it's not that we don't push it from stage, but we don't really push it from stage. We haven't seen a lot of great results because there was a time in my ministry life where it would be, hey, we need more kids ministry volunteers. Well, we know, let's get our kids min director on stage and ask for volunteers. And for whatever reason, that just never really worked. I would get the social media graphics, or, hey, can you post this on the socials? That's how we're going to recruit more volunteers. We need a new drummer. Can you post this? And it just, for our context, rarely worked. So we came up with an idea, because we don't really have a foyer at our church. We have what we would call a narthex.
You have a hallway.
It's a hallway. So we ended up paving in our garden area, and we invited ministry leaders to start setting up tables just to talk to people as a way to get to know them, get to know different ministry leaders, and to recruit. And we have found the success rate is far greater than any stage announcement, than any social media post. It's one-on-one conversations. It's, hey, here's the need. And our kids ministry team does such a great job of, hey, let me actually walk you into our space. And so she'll grab a potential volunteer. They'll go into the kids ministry space before or after service and just show them around and give them some ideas and what their specific needs are. And we did a big ministry fair volunteer push a few weeks ago, and I said a few words from stage, but the push was not, hey, here are the signups. It was, hey, here's our ministry leaders. They're going to be out there on your way out. Will you just walk by and say hello and see where you might fit in? And it was the single greatest day of signups we've ever had. And it was just those face-to-face connections. Now, it required a lot of work between our deacons and our ministry leaders, because we had to have them there and their teams had to be there. But when they're there and there's a face to that ministry, and it's not just a card, there's actually a person talking to them, we've seen great success when it comes to volunteer recruitment.
So scan the QR code on the screen if you want to volunteer is not what you're suggesting?
It sucks. Like, every now and then we'll get a person, but when we really need volunteers, we have ministry leaders out there greeting people and saying hello and letting them know here's the need.
Okay, so for a nonprofit who usually doesn't have like a weekly meeting space, synthesize that for them. How do they put that into practice? How do that principle you just talked about, what do they do with that?
Go to where the people are.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
Find
them.
where the people that you are trying to reach are and actually talk to them. If you can have a conversation that's not a pitch,
right,
it's going to make the pitch so much easier.
I mean, if a nonprofit leader came to you and just said, hey, all we're asking for is a little bit of space in your lobby or narthex, because everyone knows that word.
It's an old one.
Yeah, and I Googled it.
It's not a stage, it's the chancel. Same thing.
Yeah. It's a narthex is an antechamber, porch, or distinct area at the western entrance. Is that the western entrance of your church?
It is, yeah.
Actually, it is, yeah. It really is.
It's a real narthex. If
From
you
the
wanna see-
Renaissance period?
True narthex.
Well, that's why this is how you get on the Nonprofit Renaissance podcast.
Yeah.
You have a narthex at your church.
Hey, I know of a great architect. He's up in Tarpon Springs.
Stop it.
He might have been that elder we were talking about earlier.
Stop it. Cut that out.
We'll put a link to his website down below.
So if they came to you and they said their ask to you was not, hey, give us volunteers, but it was, hey, give me a little bit of space. We want to come set up a table just have some information and just to talk. Like, is that a yes? Is that a no? How do you?
I think it's I'll meet you at Topgolf and we can talk about
that
it. Right?
too.
I love that one. But actually, that is a big yes for us. Most of our nonprofits that we partner with, when they do come to Lakeview, they end up getting a little table. They have some space right outside our ministry leaders, and we'll plug them from stage.
Yeah.
Hey, make sure you go see either a missionary or a mission organization or that nonprofit. Say hello and introduce yourself.
Low risk, high reward ask right there.
Yep.
Especially if they bring coffee.
I was going to say,
on that.
and we've had a few
Oh.
that say, hey, can we bring donuts? And those are awesome. Like,
Heck
we
yeah.
love that.
A little
Yeah.
sugar, man. Caffeine goes a long way.
Of course.
Goes a long way.
Makes
they
me
got-
wish that Chick-fil-A was open on Sunday just for the chicken minis. Could you imagine if we could bring chicken minis to church? We would get so many volunteers.
You'd have to freeze them.
That's terrible. Don't do that.
Just,
No.
Is that an idea? I mean, it was a college student, right, who became a millionaire selling Chick-fil-A on Sundays?
It's a great
does that
idea.
happen?
New York.
Did that happen?
I read
they
something.
froze it. And,
I think I heard this story.
Something, yeah. Then he started.
mean-
he would, get him end of the day, and I think they canceled him. But that's
Sure they
another
did.
episode.
they being we won't talk
Yeah.
talk anymore about that.
I want to dive into a little bit of all the dirt you have on Colin.
Oh, jeez.
Now, wait. Tell me about the internship. You interned at Mars Hill, correct?
Yeah. So I did an internship out in Seattle at Mars
Now,
Hill.
did you meet-
small, tiny church out there in Seattle? Not
I've heard.
Not well known.
I've heard about the rise and the fall.
You heard about the rise and the fall.
Yeah.
Did you hear
Most-
about the rise of...
Most of that was because of Colin.
No, yes.
The fall was.
I did my work over there. I did some damage.
Who the?
It's not that he came back a changed man, but he came back with a really foul mouth. Like, his
Oh.
language was just beyond...
I didn't want to bring it up. I'm glad you did.
There we go.
talking
That's what
about?
I wanted to
He
talk
just-
about.
Don't even, Colin. Don't
He
you
was like,
dare.
"It's cool to cuss at church
What
now."
the-
I'm so confused.
What the bleep are you talking about?
I'm glad
Listen,
that
it's
the Holy
a
Spirit
different
has
it's a
sanctified
different culture out
Colin a
there.
little bit now, and now he's just using bleeps.
You guys all met at rehab.
He has.
You guys all met at rehab after Mars Hill, apparently.
But we do share a large internship legacy. I don't know.
I mean, I was never technically an intern. I was a volunteer who then got hired and then got fired.
So you're an intern. That's as far as I'm concerned. That's at most places where they're going to say it or not. Yeah, I don't. So yeah, we've got that history. I don't. Again, no dirt. I don't know what you're talking about.
I mean, I'm way older than Colin is, though. That's what you need to realize.
1 or
that
2 years.
I think you were maybe like a freshman
Well,
in high
you-
school when I was the middle school pastor.
Yes, yeah. So I guess
Colin,
you
Colin,
weren't
don't be-
my youth pastor.
No.
but
Don't be
you were-
nervous. Let him talk, please.
Oh,
okay?
sorry.
He's nervous, bro.
But I'm
Yeah,
just
yeah,
saying,
he's
like,
like-
So wait, hey guys, thank you so much for.
Let him talk.
Colin's siblings and I, Colin's sister was 1 year behind me in a little private school where everybody knew everybody's business.
Yep.
And then his brother was on my flag football team for years that Colin later joined.
I was going to
So
say,
you were-
don't leave me out.
We were the Purple Pandas.
Yeah, we were.
I wore
And
just
did we
head to
ever
toe-
win a? Did we ever win a title?
No, but
No.
I wore head to toe spandex.
It was phenomenal.
Wow.
Oh
And-
man, those are the.
and was not built for spandex. It was not a good look. It was, this is ridiculous, and I'm going to lean into it.
Well, that's in the eye of the beholder. Because
Is that the title of this podcast and
You're
the thumbnail?
exactly built for. Oh, that will be
You
a
found it.
thumbnail. Yeah. Okay.
Well,
I just,
I
you know,
knew
I'll
the
let you-
competitive side of Colin. We did several summer camps together, and at this particular camp, there was always the big dodgeball tournament. It was just
of course.
it was a big deal. Like, we took it serious as youth workers, as students, and I'll never forget one match in particular where Colin's team went a bit over the top, and it was a bit much. We may or may not have had to have a little conversation with that competitive edge. And I hope you didn't lose. I hope you've never lost your competitive edge. I hope it
looks
still
so
I don't think I
confused
have.
right now.
I actually remind me.
I don't think he remembers this.
Oh,
There's a lot that
there
I
may
don't
have been
remember.
multiple headshots with young middle schoolers, and you were not a middle schooler at the
Oh.
time. And it was
Well, that's just part of the game.
See, like,
That's just what you're signing up for.
Oh boy,
It's called dodgeball. If you can't do it, don't play. You know
Can't
what I'm
dodge.
saying? Can't dodge.
the referees were not his friends. He knew all the right calls. They knew none of the right calls.
And that's not just a language. That's, you
I'd
know,
say
This
That's
was
actually-
pre-Mars
maybe
Hill,
that's
so you
where
can
the
only
language-
imagine after that.
Oh man. So I'm a great person, is what we're all trying to say. It's what we're all really trying to communicate here.
it's the
But-
Colin Boost episode. Just trying to let's keep talking about you, Colin.
Oh,
Just
man.
you're sweating, bro. Why are you sweating?
It's really red.
I'm sweating because it's actually really warm in here. Are you guys warm? I'm warm.
I'm freezing.
I'm always warm.
I am severely overweight, and I feel fine. So if I'm not sweating, I think it must be your conscience.
Fair enough. Well, then
Talking
Let's
about
just get out
talking
of here.
about heat and temperatures. I want to go back to ministry burnout, okay, and what that is, what that means. So you spent some time diving into this.
I did.
A lot of time. Very relevant. I wouldn't say trending, but very real topic that doesn't get talked about tons, gets avoided. Maybe some things have come to light as of recent. Maybe after 2020, some ministry tendencies have changed or have been looked into. Tell us a little bit more. What was your angle? Was it from personal experience?
A little bit, but also just knowing the community that we have. So it's only been a couple months. And I'm like, what was the topic of that thing? But it was digital resources and virtual communities as a ways to combat ministry burnout. And so it was post COVID, ministry staffs have gotten smaller. It doesn't matter if you are at, since we're talking Mars Hill, obviously that staff has gotten smaller, but
By 100%.
yes, but whether you are at the big cool church or the neighborhood church, ministry staffs and most ministry budgets are smaller than they were. And so if you are on a ministry staff of 6 or 7, you're probably on a ministry staff of 4 or 5 right now. And if you had budgets to go to 1 or 2 conferences a year where you would reconnect with your buddies from seminary or Bible college or wherever, that conference probably doesn't exist right now. And if it does, you can maybe go to 1 or 2. So pastors are lonelier than ever before. Like the New York Times did a big Sunday morning piece on the reality of pastors leaving ministry at an alarming rate, and especially millennial pastors leaving ministry at an alarming rate, which means who is there to take up the mantle? Because the boomers are retiring, the millennial pastors are saying, I'm out. And the answer seems to be, and of course my research was very biased going in because it was, here's what I think is working, because I am on a church staff of 1 and am not struggling with this right now because I have a community of other pastors. And so it was, pastors need people that they can be in community with. They need people that their job does not depend on. And I think we've all served in roles where there was church hurt and there was frustration, and you couldn't go to your boss because your boss was the one causing the church hurt and the frustration. And so pastors need other pastors at a similar life stage that they can go to, that can support them, that can give advice, and that will not fire them.
And if you put it on a podcast, they may even listen to it on Monday.
They might even listen to it and be
possible.
like, wait, are you talking about me? Yes, we were
Have you ever
talking-
got that? Have you gotten questions like,
Oh, yeah.
hey, you said something.
Yeah.
I'm just curious
I was
where.
curious.
Yeah, absolutely.
So not from another
And
pastor.
is that what you said? Told
Yeah,
them?
and I'm like, yeah, it was
Yep,
absolutely
that was
you.
it.
But see,
Every time.
we've had one where we were talking about people leaving the church, and are they ghosting or what's going on? So I had someone who had left a few, and I knew why they left. They called the next week and like, hey, let's talk about why we're not there. I'm like, I wasn't talking about you. I was talking about another, somebody else that left for a very different, less important reason.
But I'm sorry you feel so
But I'm
guilty. for
sorry.
leaving.
Yeah.
But I'm sorry your conscience says that you have violated that membership covenant, not contract, not form, that membership covenant that you made, and then you just ghosted us. It's cool, whatever.
Now, we'll say you guys must, you have to be somewhat careful and disciplined to not be super passive aggressive on a Monday morning. So today we're going to talk about the non-tithing,
You know who you are.
Have you ever noticed that the families that take the most ministry resources give the least? What's up with that?
What in the world?
Yeah, statistics outside of Florida, of course, say that. That's gotta be a challenge, because I'd be tempted to call out that frustration or that whatever, from wardrobe to freaking.
The thing that works really well is we text probably like teenage girls. Throughout the week, I'll try to find something that we had said for the Monday previous's podcast, and it'll take 10 minutes of scrolling to find the show notes from last Monday on this Monday. And so whatever frustrations he's dealt with during the week or vice versa, we typically know. And so there have been times that I have brought up what he's struggling with, and with just enough plausible deniability that they might think that I'm talking about me, and vice versa.
We have done that. We've also done it in such a way where we thought we weren't going to talk about it, but one of us would bring it up and the other one would know exactly what we were talking about, just to mess with the person. But I think what helps is we keep each other in check. So there will be times right before we go on the show where we'll say, okay, here's the topic, and then one of us will say, yeah, that's too soon.
This
like,
is
not
what we
yet.
can't talk about.
And we'll have a list of things not to talk about because that's just not.
But again, that's the community that
Exactly.
I'm talking about when I say, pastors need communities, whether virtually or face to face, so that when a microphone is in front of their face, they don't vent because they've had that conversation. They've been able to process that within their community of people who are in the same ministry stage and in the same life stage and just get it. We call a group of friends that we have the ministry frat, and we have frat parties with our wives and kids, and it's like, hey, we don't have to behave.
There's 17,000 humans
so
that
a lot of-
participate
There's
in that,
so
by the
many
way.
children.
Sign up for Rush Week now.
Yeah, pretty much.
The link below.
But it's so nice that we don't have to feel like we're on because they had this, either a really good or a really bad week, like we had a really good or bad week. And it's not like, hey, this guy's complaining or this guy's bragging, because we've had weeks like that. And so I think, and this is true for any ministry leader, whether that's church vocational ministry or nonprofit ministry, you need people. God created us to be in community. And if you are isolated, you're going to be snarky and you're going to be bitter and you're going to burn out.
Talk to me, and talk to the millennial leader, the millennial pastor that's thinking about quitting, thinking about dropping it, fed up. He's watched one too many YouTube reviews and has seen one too many fall or step into for the wrong. What would you say? Because I think we need godly called leaders from this gen. We need the boomers to mentor. We need the Gen Xers to chill out.
Get out of here
we
now.
need the Gen Y, Gens, all the gens. I mean, I think, what would you say to the generational and the ones coming up and quitting?
Find someone a life stage ahead of you. Find someone a life stage behind you. Find out from the one ahead of you why they stayed, and give the person behind you a reason to stay. Because
Great. It's really good.
we are guaranteed that the gates of hell are not going to prevail against the church.
Mm-hmm.
The church, now, if you need to stay, if you need to leave for the health of your family or your marriage or whatever, by all means, fine. The church is going to do fine. The church is going to survive without you. But talk about job security. I mean, every nonprofit that we are talking to on this podcast right now is going to cease to exist in the next 50, 60 years. That's the nature of nonprofits. The church is not.
Mm-hmm.
Whether the same church with the same title and the same pastor, sure, all that's going to change. But we are promised that the gates of hell are not going to prevail against the church. So that is something worth sticking it out for in an organization, worth dealing with the heartache and the hurt and the hiccups and whatever other H words you want to use that describe the people that make it up. And the burnout issue is going to happen whatever your job is. If you're unhealthy in church, you're going to be unhealthy in corporate, or you're going to be unhealthy in nonprofit spaces, wherever you find yourself. If you're not healthy, you're going to be unhealthy wherever you end up. So of all of the places that I would choose to seek health, it would be the church. It would be the organization that I know is going to exist way, way, way beyond my life.
You want to chime in? I did have a comment before you chime in here, because I do think that's an important point. It's easy to blame the church, that organization, for the burnout, right? And again, there are imperfect people, but your workaholism, your habits will go with you wherever you go, whether you end up at a Forbes 500, at a nonprofit, or at the Publix,
Or Arby's, yeah.
or Arby's,
Right.
right? That, and I think then we love to deconstruct and point at the church. Oh, bad, the church fried me. It's like, well, time out. It wasn't perfect. There's a lot of, and again, it's not a cop out for bad leadership and for bad, because that will go right with you wherever you go. And if you don't handle that, you're just creating a cycle that will repeat itself.
Yeah, and I think what happens with some of these guys that I've talked to personally who've reached out, who've gone through this and their context, is they have this idea that, well, I just got to find the right church. And so they'll bounce from church to church. And I'm just like, when you find it, let me know. Like, it's just not, there's no such thing as a perfect church. There's going to be problems. There's going to be issues. So yeah, there's some introspection that needs to be done. But my question for these guys is always, tell me about the community that you've surrounded yourself with outside the church. So what pastors, what ministry leaders, who are you regularly
Who are
talking
the
to?
three people that you are texting the most?
And more often than not, they don't have a list. Like because there's outside of their church, they have no one and therein lies the problem. You have not had a chance to process this with anyone outside of your organization.
I don't know that I've met someone that would say they've been through burnout who has had that.
Right.
They've had those people that they know I can go to with this. I'm not going to be judged. I'm just going to be cared for. I don't know if I've ever met someone who's burned out when that's in place.
Tim just had a really crappy ministry week. I don't know when this is airing, but death of a child in the church, crappy ministry week.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And the funeral was yesterday. And I mean, how many churches were represented at that funeral? I mean, I know I wasn't there, but we were, as a congregation, we're praying for the church yesterday. And it's when you look at the New Testament, and there were no denominations in the New Testament. There were not, first, second, third, fourth Baptist church in every town in the New Testament. So it was a little bit different because there's one group of believers per town for the most part. Maybe not in Rome, but we don't.
Well, Paul would say no.
Here we are in a New Testament survey with Andrew. But
Dr. Andrew.
Yeah,
Thank you. But the church was connected. They were praying for each other. The leaders knew each other. They were corresponding with each other. And we live in such a time now that the churches down the street from each other don't know each other because they see each other as competition. Mm-hmm. When I said I spent 15 years in big cool churches, it's so nice being at the little kind of under-resourced church, because when somebody inevitably leaves and goes to the mega church down the street because there's this program for their kids or there's this recovery program or whatever it might be, it's like, hey, good for good. We are not in competition with them. We are on the same team. We're fulfilling a slightly different role. But when pastors see each other as competition, there's not going to be community. Mm-hmm. But when pastors see each other as co-laborers for the glory of God, and yes, your methods might be different than my methods, but our goal is God's glory, then that's how community gets formed, and that's how really silly podcasts start.
Thank you guys so much for being here.
Thanks for the invite.
This has been super, super great.
We got to have you guys now over to our space so we could have the morning after (vocational ministry show.
Ooh, let's
go.
What time do you guys do the lives?
11 o'clock every Monday.
Mondays at 11.
That's as early as you can get a pastor up on a
Yes.
That's it.
So that way we can roll.
If it's their day off, they're still up by that time.
That way we can roll into the office at 10 a.m. and be like, hey, office support staff, we're here. Look,
Hello.
we're working today. Wink. And then
Wink, wink.
Do a show. Then when we're done, it's time for lunch.
Hello.
Oh, man.
It's
You guys
true.
After 300 episodes, you got to figure it out.
Figured it out.
We'll see you guys next time on the Nonprofit Renaissance.
Thanks again for listening to the Nonprofit Renaissance. We hope it ignites a renaissance in you and helps you go further and grow faster. Be sure to share, rate, and subscribe. And if you'd like to recommend or be a guest on our show, send us an email at podcast@versecreative.com.